A team that transcends time and space. It's the DigiGods. And now please welcome two men who don't fear old Georgie, Wade Major and Mark Kaiser.
Ooh, old Georgie. Corey, who sent that in?
That was sent in by Kevin Lower, and I think that if Cloud Atlas had been as long as that reference, that intro, I'm gonna stick a fork in my eye.
It's like Corey's right here goofing with us.
Oh, well, anyway. Have you been, well, first of all, Beauty and the Beast is making a just ghastly amount of money.
Well, look, I personally am very excited to see the live-action version of a story about a beautiful young girl who falls in love with a talking buffalo.
That's certainly been the thing that's been it's an old joke, but honestly, it's the most successful film ever to come out of a gay film festival, isn't it?
That's just, you know what, that pisses me off because people will see now. See, now it's all freighted with meaning. It's just, you know, it's like it's a throwaway shot at the end. Yes, he definitely has a crush on Gaston.
Look. The thing is, it would have gone right over the heads of 99% of the people watching it, and certainly all the kids. Had Condon not blown it up with that interview in the UK. It was he blew it. He said something he shouldn't have said. He made it out to be more than it was, and then when he walked it back, now he made everybody in the gay community mad. Yeah, so he kind of pissed everybody off. Anyway.
He did piss everybody off because this guy I know he talked to Josh Gad at the premiere, and Josh Gad had said, Condon really screwed us over.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to hurt the film overall long term. It's everyone still wants to see it, but.
I mean, it's fine.
It's fine. Yeah.
I mean, I think what bothered me the most, and the movie's completely fine. What bothers me the most is Wade has a sippy cup today with training wheels because before we started recording, I gave him a cup of water and he spilled it all over the table.
That's what I do.
Which has never happened before. All the years we've done the show.
Yeah.
My only issue with the movie, maybe I'm expecting too much from Disney, which is generally a safe company, is that it doesn't really it doesn't transcend the animated film. It is the animated film.
That's the problem with it is, and I said this. I was on Film Week with Lael on Friday, and I said that she and I were pretty much in agreement on it that it is too faithful to the animated film. You kind of feel it's too unlike something like Maleficent, which. Found a different angle, a different approach, and was able to sort of free itself and develop its own identity. This one's just a little bit too beholden to being faithful to the original and emulating shots and lines and specific moments, and you just feel the weight of that. And I kind of wish it had been a little bit more like the Christoph Gans film.
That's not going to happen. Well, they want a bunch of 10-year-old girls in princess outfits.
I know. But even still, the Christoph Gans film, for those who didn't see it, Christoph Gans, who made Brotherhood of the Wolf many years ago and has pretty much been non-existent since. It's amazing. The guy's extremely talented. He did a version of Beauty and the Beast, a French-language Beauty and the Beast last year, the first French-language one since Cocteau, believe it or not. And Léa Seydoux is fantastic as Belle. But Vincent Cassel is not so great as the Beast, unfortunately. But nonetheless, as soulless as that film is, it has everything that this one doesn't, which is costumes and art direction and CGI, and all of that stuff is really through the roof in that film. I just wish they could have gotten that kind of, liberated themselves a little bit to explore that more. But whatever.
Too much at stake.
Too much at stake. So what I said on the radio was, it's not the film it could be, it's not the film it should be, but it's the film Disney needs it to be. And I think most people will thoroughly enjoy it. I do.
Yeah.
Have you been watching Iron Fist?
No.
Did you? Let me ask you this.
I've never watched any of those Netflix superhero shows.
Never seen Daredevil?
Nope.
Never seen Jessica Jones?
Yeah, keep going. The answer will be no.
Never seen Luke Cage?
No.
Have you ever seen Netflix?
Yes, I have Netflix. I have Netflix. I love Netflix. Right, okay. But here's the thing: is that with Netflix, I tend to just get the DVDs because there's so many classic movies I want to watch or rewatch that Netflix has everything. But when it comes to streaming, as Netflix wants this to be, it's really just their original shows because the movies they stream are not great.
No.
Yes, I can watch 17 Family Guys in a row, which of course to me is like heaven. But what were you about to say about the Netflix shows?
No, well, I was going to say, it's interesting. I mean, I started off liking it, and then I started to really like it, and then it kind of started to really deteriorate. It's gotten really bad reviews, which I find odd because it's not a bad show. But I do feel the weight of them wanting to sort of let's get it over with and let's get on to the Defenders miniseries.
Well, at some point, they had to have a stinker. Not every single solitary Netflix show is going to be good.
But you do feel like that they already know the story they want to tell in the Defenders. They're going to dovetail from where it left off in Daredevil 2 into that. They're going to dovetail from where Luke Cage and Jessica Jones left off, and they have intertwined. He's a big figure in her show, so it's almost like we've had a season and a half of Luke Cage. We should have had about 2.5 seasons of Luke Cage, but it just does feel like they just want to get on to the Defenders. So everything in Iron Fist just feels kind of herky jerky. At this point, I'm only halfway through, but we'll see.
At the end, he dies.
Oh man,
terrible tragedy.
All right. So anyway, we've got some listener mail today. We're going to try to get to.
Wow, we haven't had listener mail in a million years.
No, gods at digigods.com.
What's wrong with you people?
We got to. Well, the holidays intervened and things got all whatever. So, let me, we're going to hit off we're going to lead off with some Twilight Time. Let's do the new classic.
Twilight Zone?
Yeah, Twilight Time stuff. Really, really great Twilight Time titles this month.
Look, wait.
I know. We'll get to it in a moment. So, first off, Twilight Time. We got 4 more titles this month from Twilight Time. TwilightTimeMovies.com is where you go to get these. Our Man in Havana. Just an absolute blast.
It's cool.
It's a great movie, isn't it?
I read the book, and then after reading the book, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to see the movie.
Yeah.
And the movie, although the movie is not the book, the movie somehow has the spirit of Graham Greene. Well, it's in there somewhere.
It's the spirit of Graham Greene mixed with the great direction of Carol Reed, who of course did The Third Man and won his Oscar for Oliver, and Alec Guinness, who's just great. I mean, how do you not love Alec Guinness in anything?
Kind Hearts and Coronets.
He's amazing. He's great in everything he does. So Our Man in Havana from 1959, which is a Graham Greene novel about a guy who's a vacuum cleaner salesman in Cuba and becomes a spy, and it's great. Noel Coward plays the guy who recruits him, and it's an awful lot of fun, and it's pre-James Bond British spy escapade that's just awful lot of fun and really, really great. And it is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful on this Blu-ray. Twilight Time absolutely did right by it. And I'd say that's pretty much the Twilight Time pick of the month. They also have given us a couple of other classics from the same general kind of era. One is the schmaltzy Peyton Place, which I've never been a big fan of. This is from 1957, which, of course, is, to me, the year of Bridge on the River Kwai. But you know what? Peyton Place still has it still has a thing. People still like it. Hope Lang is beautiful in it. She, of course, would go on to be on The Ghost of Mrs. Muir. And most significantly, Lana Turner just is really, really great in this thing. But it is schmaltzy. It is the original soap opera. It is... It's where all that stuff originated, Dallas and Dynasty and you name it. So that's where all that stuff comes from. And Peyton, of course, the television series Peyton Place. So but it's a nice Blu-ray if you are into that. And I should point out as well that you get isolated music and effects track on Our Man in Havana, which is the standard Twilight Time thing, and then loads of special features on Peyton Place. Audio commentary with Willard Carroll, film historian, which is fine. Another audio commentary with Terry Moore and Russ Tamblyn. Russ Tamblyn is always good to listen to. Fun stuff. Russ Tamlin's just, he's a legend, right? Twin Peaks.
He's Amber Tamlin's brother.
And, dad. And, of course, West Side Story. But Twin Peaks, Russ Tamblyn. And then there's a little on-location audio commentary and some, newsreels and backstory stuff. And it's fun. It's one of the more loaded things that Twilight Time has done in a while. How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. Also a really, really fun film from 1967. Really a great sort of 60s throwback cult film. Really kind of a bit of a weird anachronism in many respects as well, but still an awfully fun film, and kind of a moment of it was originally a Broadway musical, right? You ever seen the musical? Because they've revived it a few times.
Matthew Broderick started in the revival, I believe.
Right? Yeah, it was. What was it? 5 years ago? 6 years?
Something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. Which got really good notices, too. So anyway, How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying really captures all that kind of 60s-era anxiety. Really, really great work by Bob Fosse. Fun film. This has isolated music track, as per usual, and then some kind of featurette stuff and a trailer. Really, that's good. And then here's the one that sort of came out of the blue. I would never have expected Twilight Time to release Baby Boom. But you know what? It kind of is an interesting partner film with How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, if you think about it.
I choose not to think about it.
Comes 20 years later, during a very different kind of job anxiety moment. And, women trying to be sort of have it all and be mothers and professionals and all that stuff. And, late life babies and all that kind of stuff. Diane Keaton. This film doesn't really work. This was one of the last of the Shire Myers films before they broke up, and she went on to make Schmaltz, and he tried to have a different career, which didn't really pan out. She's had a much more successful career as a director, hasn't she?
Yeah, but she doesn't make good movies.
I've liked a couple of them.
What was that horrible Jack Nicholson thing she made?
Yeah, but for example, like the Alec Baldwin Meryl Streep thing, that I thought was fun. Anyway,
which one was that?
What was it called? Just about 4 or 5 years ago. My mother-in-law really enjoyed it. Anyway, Sam Shepard, fantastic, great score by Bill Conti, which you get in an isolated effects track as well. And Julie Kirgo and Nick Redman do typically wonderful work on the audio commentary. And you know what? It's funny,
it's complicated?
That's it. It's complicated.
Well, she directed The Intern.
Yeah, and The Intern was good, too.
No, it was.
Yeah, it was.
There's no way.
It is. It's a fun
With
film.
De Niro and Anne Hathaway?
It's only got one bad moment where they, the whole break-in shtick, which was really just way too farcical. But anyway, Baby Boom, it ages well. I'm shocked at how sort of relevant it still seems, maybe even more so now. So anyway, that's all good stuff from Twilight Time. It's good month from Twilight Time. Great stuff.
Good month for Criterion.
What do we got?
Well, we got two. We got one is one of my all-time favorite films, and then the other one is also a terrific film. This is Multiple Maniacs. This is John Waters' second film, and if you know John Waters, you know what you're getting into when Lady Divine's cavalcaded perversion rolls into town. This is. I was just thinking, it probably took it cost much more to restore this film than it cost to make it. Because John Waters films, if you're familiar with them, are just super low budget, high contrast, cheap black and white, trash looking films. But that's John Waters, and he has been operating out of Baltimore for decades, and he is a great personality and a great guy and a great wit. Sometimes I think that the idea of a John Waters film is better than actually sitting through a John Waters film. But Multiple Maniacs is absolutely bonkers. And you will see people here doing some crazy stuff. Not as crazy as Divine eating dog poop.
Yeah.
There's nothing as crazy as that. But Multiple Maniacs, this was the special edition was overseen by Waters himself. And we have, it's a new 4K, which is funny to take a $1.98 black and white film and run it through 4K. Because you're not going to get much more out of that stock. Audio commentary, new one featuring Waters, new interviews with some of the crew, and it's great. Multiple Maniacs is just terrific. Again, you might find yourself going, after 45 minutes thinking, yeah, I've had enough of this, I'll just skim through the rest. But it's great, and I love John Waters, and it's too bad he stopped making films because he's awesome. Then, one of my all-time favorite films on Criterion, Being There. This has been on Blu-ray before because I own it, and now I will soon own this one because Wade will give it to me. This is the story of Chance the Gardener, otherwise known as Chauncey Gardner.
Yeah.
And, it's funny because Peter Sellers had always said that he is he has no personality. He's like a chameleon.
Yeah.
That was his thing.
Yeah.
And for somebody who claims that he has no personality and he's a chameleon, this is the perfect role.
It is.
Because the whole idea is it's a movie about a guy who he's basically just an idiot.
Yeah.
He's just a mentally slow person, but everything he says is misinterpreted to have all this great meaning. And he winds up running his way through the political system in Washington. And it's funny because I hate this. I do see Trump parallels in this. I do see Trump parallels in this.
Well, a lot of people have made that point too. And it's a
great film.
The fantastic Hal Ashby kind of really hit his stride during this period, and especially with this movie. I mean, it's just fabulous.
I mean, Hal Ashby had one of the great runs, like in the 80s. I mean, in the 70s, Hal Ashby, look, you got like Harold and Maude and Shampoo and Bound for Glory and Coming Home.
And this.
And Being There.
Yeah.
Then he kind of flamed out. But we don't need Hal Ashby doing The Slugger's Wife.
No.
We don't need that.
But gosh, he really had just a great run. And what a wonderful movie. It really is. Shirley MacLaine is so good in this. And, Jack Warden, Melvin Douglas. What an amazing bunch of people. Anyway, well, that's
it's a great film, and it's so everything right down to the score
Criterion.
Is great. It's so well done. This film is hilarious. It just sneaks up on you. It's got a lot of relevance for today. It's another great Blu-ray from Criterion. You guys got to get it. Peter Sellers, by the way, up for an Oscar for that performance.
That's right. That was,
and he lost to Dustin Hoffman.
That's right.
In Kramer versus Kramer.
That's right. Gosh, good memory. All right, so a bunch of stuff from Kino's Studio Classics line. Really an interesting month here. These things, I'm always curious to see what sort of shows up, and there's never really. I don't want to say there's no rhyme or reason to it because there is, but it's always an interesting surprise. Because some of these movies I would never have expected to show up on Blu-ray, so I'm glad they are. And the first one is The Man Who Could Cheat Death, which is truly one of the all-time great Christopher Lee performances. It's just he is so unbelievably good in it, and because it's so different from anything else that he normally would do, and yet at the same time it's kind of exactly what you would expect him to do. So in any case, this is from the Hammer period, the brightly colored 1959 late 50s era Hammer films, directed by Terence Fisher, who of course was a master of that entire thing. And the star of the film is Anton Defring. It's not, just want to make people understand, Christopher Lee is not the star of the film. He's really great in it, but Anton Defring is the star. And perfectly fine, but really gets overshadowed by Christopher Lee. Anyway, the idea here is that it is about a guy who could, in fact, cheat death, as the title so aptly points you in. And it's an interesting psychological trip more than anything else. It's not about the shocks. It's not about the macabre. It is really very much on about the, if you were this person, if this happened to you, and I won't get into the details as to what happens and how it happens, but it kind of gets into Jekyll and Hyde territory. It's based on a play, and it's much more preoccupied with the psychological aspects of the blessing and the curse at hand. We also have Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing in director Freddie Francis's When the Skull Strikes, You'll Scream. The Skull.
Wait, so the movie's called When the Skull Strikes, You'll Scream the Skull?
The movie is The Skull. The movie is The Skull. But I'm just, I'm leading it in. I'm giving a little dramatic lead in because that's the tagline. When the skull strikes, you'll scream. This is also a Hammer film, and I don't know if it's one of the better ones, but it's anytime you put Cushing and Lee together in a film, it's great. And this is based on a short story by Robert Bloch, who not only wrote Psycho, but wrote Wolf in the Fold, the Star Trek episode.
What?
The Jack the Ripper Star Trek episode.
What?
Yeah. So, people often forget that. The guy who wrote Psycho wrote a Star Trek episode. You realize that?
That's cool.
Yeah. So, anyway, this is all about people who collect kind of occult items, and the issue here is that one of those items is the skull of the Marquis de Sade, and there are things that are attached to the skull that happen. And in any case, Freddie Francis directed a lot of these kinds of films. He, of course, is better known as a great cinematographer of movies like The Elephant Man. But really just great work here. And, the movie's chilling, and it's got a great supporting cast, including Patrick McGee, who showed up in a lot of Kubrick films. So that is the skull of the Marquis de Sade. And we also have, kind of in the same general vein, we got a lot of really creepy ones here. Chamber of Horrors, which is directed by Norman Lee, another very capable director who directed a lot of this kind of stuff. This is not a Hammer film. This is more in the noir tradition, 1940. And it is actually still really, really effective. This is based on the novel The Door with Seven Locks by Edgar Wallace, which I am not familiar with, but Edgar Wallace apparently is the guy who also wrote King Kong, the original King Kong.
Did he write an episode of Star Trek?
No, he did not. Did not write an episode of Star Trek. But anyway, it's it's a haunted house kind of story, and it's very effectively done. I think this would probably be a good one for somebody to remake at some point. We also have Bela Lugosi in Invisible Ghost. I am a huge fan of Bela Lugosi's non-Dracula stuff, and this is from 1941, so Bela Lugosi is starting to look an awful lot like Martin Landau at this point. But anyway, Joseph H. Lewis directed this with his usual noirish aplomb, and Bela Lugosi overacts to the nth degree, but that's what he does. And, it's all very kind of M-like and Fritz Lang-ish and Fritz Lang-inspired, but it's a good little chiller, good little black and white chiller. Orson Welles in Compulsion, directed by Richard Fleischer. This is from 1959. Orson Welles is starting to get fat here, very fat. This is from his bloating period.
Speaking of bloating period, Other Side of the Wind.
I know, right?
Crazy.
Holy cow! Well done, Netflix.
I know.
I'm very happy.
That's gonna get them a lot of deposits in the favor bank.
Yeah,
in Hollywood.
It sure will.
Yeah. Bogdanovich is on board. You know, Frank Marshall was the production manager on that movie.
Was he really?
Yes, and he's come back to help restore it.
Holy
and Bogdanovich was in it.
I had no. Frank Marshall was a production manager.
Isn't that crazy?
Oh, that's wild. Wow. Well, anyway, for those who don't know, Compulsion is based on the 1924 trial, Leopold and Loeb, which has its own sort of historical cultish currency. I won't get into giving you the whole Leopold and Loeb thing, but it's very much one of those moments that sort of leads into the global chaos of the 1930s, and this is really kind of a showcase for the actors involved. Dean Stockwell, E.G. Marshall, Orson Welles, everybody is just really, really chewing the scenery here, but in a very, very good way. Film historian Tim Lucas does the audio commentary, kind of positions everything in a very, very intelligent way, gives you all the backdrop that you need, and it's beautifully shot. Richard Fleischer does great work. It's a really rock-solid 50s-era studio film. And then the last two, we start with another rock-solid studio film, A Game of Death, directed by Robert Wise, from 1945, as he was still being kind of a genre guy, just before he was able to really launch himself into more top-tier flight stuff. He was coming out of being an editor. Robert Wise edited Citizen Kane. So this is the beginning of his career as a director, and he's cutting his teeth, and eventually he will become the guy who makes, West Side Story and The Sound of Music. And Star Trek: The Motion Picture. But otherwise, this is a...
Andromeda Strain, too.
That's right. But otherwise, this is a pretty straightforward adaptation of The Most Dangerous Game, one of about 1 billion of them that have been done in the movies. And I always think, my favorite, and I've said this before on this podcast, my favorite adaptation of The Most Dangerous Game is when Rory Calhoun hunts Gilligan on Gilligan's Island. I still think that's the best adaptation.
It was brutal.
But this one is good.
That obviously, the Gilligan, that was an emotional ringer.
It was.
It was. You need time to come down from that.
You do. You really do. It was. It just kind of put me over the top. And then completely from another end of things, this is not necessarily Studio Classics, but this is also from Kino this month, and a really, really welcome release. A Great Wall. Directed by Peter Wang and produced by Shirley Sun. This is one of the first. This was the first American film shot in China. That is its distinction. But there is something, in this moment when everybody kind of talks about diversity, which I think is becoming a little bit too much of a cliche. But it remains an unfortunate fact that Asian actors in Hollywood really, really just are on the bottom of the totem and have a very, very hard time getting work. And very hard time with consistency of work. So this film from 1986 is really kind of a groundbreaker, and it remains a groundbreaker today. It was popular, across the independent film landscape, and deservedly so. It's basically about a guy who is working as a computer programmer at a moment when that's not even really quite a thing, and doesn't get a job, so he moves to Beijing, at the time still called Peking, to live with his sister. And it's just really, really smart and funny and sensitive, and all the cultural stuff that they throw in here, it just feels absolutely honest and heartfelt, and it's a wonderful film. It's a really, really wonderful film. 30 years later, it still feels absolutely authentic, and it resonates. So I'll highly, highly recommend A Great Wall from 1986. Great film. Well done, Peter Wang.
Wade, how are you?
I'm good.
Firestarter. Now, Firestarter, here's the thing with Firestarter. When I was
one of the touchstones for the Netflix show Stranger Things.
Yes, that's true.
Very much so.
There's actually a lot of movies that were the touchstones for Stranger Things, and a lot of them came from the 80s, like Poltergeist and Red Dawn, and Firestarter is one of them. Maybe even Scanners, Nightmare on Elm Street, like all these 80s films. And The Thing was a great film. I'm sorry, The Thing is awesome. But they're all these like mid-budgeted films that a very, very young Mark thought was really cool, but then if you watch them stay, they're pretty stupid. And Firestarter is one of them. And it's based on a Stephen King book, because most films are based on a Stephen King book, especially during that time. And it's now out on a terrific new collector's edition Blu-ray from the good people at Screen Factory. They dug up Mark Lester, who's still around. He directed the film. He provides a new audio commentary and is seen in interviews. And I think this is more of a nostalgia piece than anything else, because really, when you think of thrillers, right? You can see George C. Scott starring in a thriller, right? And George C. Scott is in this film.
Sure.
But when I think of thrillers, you know who I don't think of? Art Carney. Art Carney's in this film.
Really? You know what? I'd totally forgotten that. I have a vague recollection of that.
Art Carney in this film, and that does not smell thriller to me. Anyway, that's something that your parents would get a smile out of. Next, we have two of the worst sequels ever made. We have Robocop 2. Here's the thing with Robocop 2. Robocop 2 isn't just a bad movie, but it also features one of the worst scores in the history of the world. Leonard Rosenman, who has done good... I don't really like him. He has done good scores in the past, was inexplicably nominated for an Oscar for Star Trek 4.
Yeah.
He does the... Now, wait, would you like me to sing the theme to Robocop 2?
Leonard Rosenman won an Oscar for Barry Lyndon.
I know. Would you,
it's an adapted score, but still.
Would you like me to sing the Robocop 2 theme song?
Go ahead.
Robocop! Remember that? There were vocals where they would go, Robocop! Like he was like Superman or something.
The worst.
It's just a terrible film. And by the way, speaking of terrible films, even worse is Robocop 3. Now, Robocop 3, where Peter Weller just dumps Peter Weller's long gone. He's been replaced by another actor.
Yeah.
Robocop 3 is like the Robocop series in its Superman 4, The Quest for Peace phase.
It has thoroughly jumped the shark at this point.
This is like the canon version.
So here's the story. So the after the first RoboCop hit, the writers Ed Neumeyer and
I know the answer to that.
So the original RoboCop writers, who are brilliant, Ed Neumeyer and I'm forgetting
Michael Miner.
So they go in to pitch the sequel. And everybody's on board, right? I mean, my understanding was Verhoeven's on board, Peter Weller's on board. The original team. We're going to get the original Basil Polidorus score. I mean, it's like everybody's on board. We're here. We're Robocopping it up again. Everybody wants the same team on board. And they come in and they say, okay, here's the pitch. We start off right after the first film. Robocop gets a call. He goes to the call, and it's an ambush. And they kill Robocop. Dead. Go to black. Come in 20 years later. And at that point, as I understand it, it was pretty much, meeting's over, goodbye. And everybody was done. And the studio just went their own direction. And nobody came back. Now, that sounds like a great thing to me, because you're not rehashing the same thing all over again. You're going into a completely weird and unpredictable direction.
But hang on, but they would have killed Robocop and replaced him with another
actor
playing
I don't know.
Robocop 2? Or
I have no idea. I don't know. All I know is that's an interesting way to start. That's where I wanted it to go.
Good job.
So anyway.
Next we have a comedy that should have been funnier yet wasn't. This is the great Mike Nichols, who died recently. He's got What Planet Are You From with Gary Shandling. Now, to me, one of the sells of the film was that Gary Shandling, his television shows were just Mount Rushmore good. But his movie career never really took off. And I think people were hoping that What Planet Are You From would be kind of launching off that he needed. I also remembered because the film came out in, what's this film? Came out in the 90s, I believe, and it was when I was hanging out with Greg Kinnear, and Greg Kinnear was in the film. And, those came out in 2000. So technically it is the 90s. So anyway, this film is about as funny as Gary Shandling and Mike Nichols can be when they're kind of phoning it in.
Yeah, I agree. I enjoyed this film.
It's fine. I don't know that it really holds up to any particular degree.
Well, it's got the vibrating penis gag in it, which is cute. But that was sort of that was the thing that it had going at the time.
See, I here's the thing: if you're doing a movie about a guy like a guy who comes from like this planet of all men who has to save his planet by procreating, I can see like Woody Allen, in his funny years, almost taking one of the vignettes of everything you always want to know about sex and turning it into this film. Yeah, I could see that being hilarious.
Isn't it interesting? Gary Shandling was once the one of the serious go-to guys for late-night comedy. He was a regular Johnny Carson stand-in, and more so than Jay Leno at a certain point. And where's he gone?
And then he wound up doing
two really good shows,
great shows.
But where's he been?
Gary Shandling?
Yeah,
he's dead.
Is he?
Is this a joke?
No.
Joke coming?
No, I mean,
I'm waiting for the punchline.
There isn't one. I mean, what I mean is, his career. I mean, what was it, about 3 years ago he passed?
No, really? I wonder. No, it can't be that long. There's no way. Please tell me it's not that long. Please tell me time doesn't go that fast. It's been 3 years since Gary Shandling died.
He really kind of fell off the map.
He died last year.
Was it last year?
Yeah.
All right, there it is. Feels like 3 years. But
you know what? He did kind of fall off the map
for about 10 years.
Yeah, again, the movie career didn't. Look, he died when he was 66. But the movie career didn't work out. TV kind of passed him by. Although I could definitely see, like at some point, a Netflix or an Amazon giving him a show.
Yeah.
And he didn't really want to do stand up again necessarily. So it's kind of like, what do you do? He showed up in. It was a very odd, kind of like extended cameo. He showed up in Winter Soldier, the Captain America film.
Yeah.
And he did do a voice in Jungle Book, but other than that, he's kind of like not retired, but I think he was just sort of like, he was one of those old. He became like an old legacy comic.
Yeah.
Who had to be appreciated by young directors who knew him and loved him from his earlier work.
Yeah.
But he was great.
So here's an interesting. Now we got some Warner Archive stuff and a really, really, really interesting, fascinating, dark, macabre story. One of the more interesting studio films from the period. A Woman's Face. A Woman's Face is like one of the darkest things that Joan Crawford ever did. Certainly might be the darkest thing George Cukor ever directed. This is a deeply disturbing movie. It's based on a Swedish film, apparently, which I have never seen, and which was a part that was originated by Ingrid Bergman. And I would love to see that. A Woman's Face is how do we put this? Joan Crawford is a woman who is so mutilated that to win the affection of the man she loves, she goes through just endless surgeries and emerges looking like Joan Crawford. At which point, the man then tries to get her to do him another favor, which is murder a little boy so that he can inherit all the boy's money.
Cool.
It's a pretty dark film, but very, very effective. And I believe it's based on a French play. So a French play became a Swedish movie, became an American noir.
You know what I find consistently fascinating about George Cukor?
Huh?
He didn't direct two of the greatest films ever made. He kind of directed Wizard of Oz, then got fired and was replaced by Victor Fleming. Then he kind of directed Gone with the Wind and got fired, replaced by Victor Fleming.
Yeah. He was a go-to guy back there. But you know what? He eventually did My Fair Lady, and that redeemed everything.
And The Philadelphia Story.
And what was the thing with Jacqueline Bisset and
Star is Born.
And
Jacqueline Bisset.
Yeah, it was his last film.
Rich and Famous?
Yeah, Rich and Famous.
Wasn't it like Nick Nolte or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Is that Nick Nolte?
And then we also have Joan Crawford in Flamingo Road, which became a television series many decades later, starring Morgan Fairchild. Which is how I got introduced to the story. And surprise of surprises to find out that they're, when you're a kid, you're like, really, Morgan Fairchild? That was a movie and it didn't have Morgan. How do you do Flamingo Road without Morgan Fairchild? Well, you do it with Joan Crawford. And it's pretty good. Michael Curtiz of Casablanca fame directed this. And it's, this is Joan Crawford kind of doing something she probably shouldn't do. But if you like Joan Crawford, you'll enjoy it just the same. It is, she plays the usual thing that she does, which is, she's caught up in these situations, and it's all kind of Southern politics. And Sidney Greenstreet plays the thing that he usually does, which is the fat crooked guy. He's like the political boss of this town. It's fine. It's we already talked about Peyton Place. It's still one of those kinds of things, but it's a Joan Crawford vehicle. That's all it's meant to be. We also have 3 Warner Archive Blu-rays. I'll go through these really quickly. The first one is Finian's Rainbow, which is a ridiculous movie starring an older Fred Astaire. It truly just a very weird movie that came way too late in its own kind of pop culture trajectory. In 1947, this thing had been a Broadway hit, and then it was turned into a movie in the late 60s by no less than an aspiring director named Francis Coppola, who really shouldn't be doing this kind of movie. It's very weird. A young Francis Coppola, an aging Fred Astaire, an old Broadway musical or an old Broadway show past its prime with some peculiar songs, and Fred Astaire, trying to keep a pot of gold away from a leprechaun. The whole thing doesn't really have the charm that I think they wanted it to have. Petula, I always mess her name up. I always want to say Petunia. Petula Clark is lovely. That's one thing I will say about this. And Coppola, of course, would go on to be the guy that co-wrote Patton and then did, Godfather 1 and 2 and Conversation and Apocalypse Now, and thank goodness he redeemed himself. Blake Edwards, who had a great career for a long time, made S.O.B. As a kind of, in the early 80s, as kind of his stab at Hollywood. I watched this, and I'm just not sure it really holds up. A lot of this just really, really is evocative of Hollywood in the 1980s. Mark, I don't know. Have you watched S.O.B. again lately?
I just remember S.O.B. as being this out there crazy comedy where like Julie Andrews at the end, who's married to Blake Edwards, flips out and shows her boobs. And like that was the big, oh my God, I cannot believe that Mary Poppins is doing that. This is just outrageous comedy that's at its most cover your eyes.
Yeah, that's sort of
that's kind of all really the movie has to offer.
It's really all it has to offer. It's Richard Mulligan plays a film director with a spotty career, and you sort of pull in all of the usual Hollywood tropes and surround him with this chaos, and it's really supposed to be a big stab in the heart to Hollywood. But honestly, watching it again, I just kind of feel like it belongs in its period. It doesn't really transcend the 80s.
Well, it doesn't have much to say about
It doesn't.
Today.
No, it doesn't.
The issue. It feels a little anachronistic, funny.
Yeah.
Like some of the individual lines are cute, and the energy is fun. It's Blake Edwards, so there'll be a lot of energy.
Yeah.
But it's funny how like the energy of a film like that compares to the energy of a film today. Like nowadays, when you watch like even a movie that's as fast cut as like Airplane or whatever, as funny as Airplane is and will always be, even that seems slow by today's standards.
Here's a Warner Archive Blu-ray that I thought was really a lot of fun. The old Val Guest exploitation classic, When Dinosaurs Ruled the Earth. The first thing I love about this is the artwork, the cover artwork. You know why? Because
it looks like the Barbarella.
Well, that's it. They all had. Basically, it's the exact same artwork from A Million Years BC, the Raquel Welch film. It's pretty much the exact same artwork, same pose, the whole thing. So that was a thing at the time. But Val Guest is always good for a blast. And these are, this is the follow up to 1 Million Years BC from Hammer, and it is kind of doing sort of kind of the same thing a little bit, I guess. The Victoria Vetri is the star. Never heard of her before. Haven't heard of her since. And it's kind of more the same, but it's kitschy and it's fun and it's very much of its era. And here's the interesting thing. Do you know who wrote the story, the original story that this is based on?
I believe Ernest Hemingway.
I'll give you a hint. There's a Spielberg movie based on his writing as well.
There's a Spielberg movie based on his writing? Oscar Schindler? He made a list.
J.G. Ballard.
Oh, I would never.
I know.
That's deep in the canon right there.
Isn't that? How about that? Crazy.
How about that?
Crazy things.
This is Bob Hope. This is that 9/11. How about that? This is Bob Hope.
All righty. Let me blow through these real quickly. I got some olive titles here.
Oh, Wade, why'd you have to give me this one today?
I know,
Come
because it's sad, right? I know.
It is sad.
Yeah, the timing of that release it could not have been worse. So we got a bunch of great stuff from Olive too. Olive has just some really, really interesting stuff that you would never have thought would ever wind up on Blu-ray, and it's all really good. Mark talked about Art Carney earlier. This is more of an Art Carney movie. One Ton Ton, the dog who saved
Hollywood.
The dog who saved Hollywood. You love
awesome.
this. This is a very funny film. This is a really, really, really funny film from 1975. I had thought this was completely forgotten. I actually saw this as a kid, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Directed by Michael Winner.
Come on,
it's such a 70s thing.
Wait, so you're saying that Michael Winner, the guy who directed Death Wish?
Yeah, exactly.
Also directed One Ton
He did. He directed One Ton Ton, the dog who saved Hollywood. This is all about the cast, to be honest. This is just all about people who show up in this movie who are all absolutely riotously wonderful and funny, especially Phil Silvers, who just can do no wrong. A young Terry Garr from her Young Frankenstein era. Bruce Dern, Art Carney, Madeline Kahn, Ron Liebman, who I always thoroughly enjoy. And most importantly, you know who wrote the score for this thing?
Oh, I believe it was Tchaikovsky.
Neil Hefti. Batman.
Right.
Come on. It's great.
Sweet.
Yeah. Tons of other great comedies in here, too. I mean, everybody from Ricardo Montalban to Zsa Zsa Gabor and Sid Charisse. I mean, the cameos are just through the roof, and it's so much fun. You really, really have a lot. Look, it's about it takes place in the silent era, and it's about a dog who saved Hollywood. Come on. It's fantastic. It's really a lot of fun.
This is back when, they were making Benji movies, and Lassie was still in the mix. And
yeah, but it's also kind of from the Cannonball Run moment where you have to pile as many people as you possibly can into a movie. It's great. Really fascinating blast from the early days of the sound era is The Cardinal from 1936. This is a really, really great film for the period, which is it's court intrigue from the 16th century, and it's based on the story of the Medicis, who of course were the rulers of Florence at the time of Leonardo da Vinci, and it's really, really interesting. Directed by Sinclair Hill, a director I am completely unfamiliar with, but this is a nice little resurrection and great discovery. So that's a cool little black and white gem. We also have Phaedra, starring with a great performance by Anthony Perkins, directed by Jules Dassin, who, of course, or Dassin, did lots of great films. This is very much in the early '60s vein. It is, of course, based on the play by Euripides, but it's a more contemporized version of it, and it's really, really cool. It's beautifully shot. It's a sharp movie, and we also have Blast Off, which is, I mean, I haven't even thought of this in a million years. I saw this when I was a kid in a revival. This was originally made in 1967. I think it was re-released about 73 or 74, something like that. Totally weird, strange movie from the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and those amazing men in their flying machines, and it was kind of one of those things. Based on Jules Verne, obviously, so it has that steampunk cred. And it really kind of came at a moment when everybody wanted just all kinds of contraptions on the screen. Everybody wanted all kinds of retro, steampunky contraptions in the late 60s.
Jules Verne, this one too.
I know.
The Soldier and the Lady, also based on Jules Verne.
Yeah. So I will turn that over to you in just a moment. But anyway, this is, it basically distinguished only because it has Burl Ives in it. And it deals with, it's kind of a fictionalized story around the exploits of P.T. Barnum. And it kind of weaves in, trip to the moon, and it's an odd movie. My favorite part of this is that it has Terry Thomas in it, and I always love Terry Thomas. So Blast Off, a nice little strange one from the late 60s. And then lastly, a movie that still really resonates from the teen delinquent period. This is The Delinquents. And the reason The Delinquents is significant is because it was written and directed in 1957 by no less than a young filmmaker coming out of documentaries, making his very first feature by the name of Robert Altman.
Never heard of him.
I know. He went on to have kind of to be sort of a thing.
Middling, up and down.
He made a movie called Mush, I think. And then he made another one called...
It said I remember the theme song. It was called When Killing Yourself Hurts a Lot.
Yeah, and he made a movie called Knoxville, I think, right?
Remember that.
Yeah. Anyway, to be honest, it's not a really good movie, but it's an interesting film, and it's significant because it's Altman doing his first narrative feature after a lot of industrials and documentaries, and he did tons of industrials. Anyway, he's got a thing. He's really kind of flexing his muscles, and it's a little bit like watching Fear and Desire, with Kubrick. It's not a guy fully in command of his faculties and his skills, but you're getting there. So The Delinquents on Blu-ray, Robert Altman's first film. Bravo, Olive. Thank you for digging that one up.
Well, thank you, Roz. Anyway, When Comedy Was King is it's on DVD. It's an old documentary from 1960, and I like this. This is good. I have a definite soft spot for silent comedy. Big fan of Buster Keaton. Pretty much the big three: Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin, and Harold Lloyd. This one is it more about Keystone Cops and Max Sennett and Fatty Arbuckle, Harry Langdon. So they do give some time to lesser known silent comedy stars. So that's kind of a good education. So I like this thing. When Comedy Was King, it's on DVD, not Blu-ray. There's a commentary. There's a couple of silent shorts that they threw in there. Which is a nice thing. So if you're into silent comedy, you can't do much better than When Comedy Was King from 1960. Also, Wade mentioned Jules Verne. We also have from Jules Verne, The Soldier and the Lady. This is a film from 1937. This is an American film, although it's all about how this guy who's a courier to the Tsar. He has to deliver information to Russian troops on the front in Siberia. So this is something where, you've got to either be a huge Jules Verne fan or a huge Ward Bond fan to really pick this up. This is like deep, deep catalog stuff. Although I'm glad that this is being resurrected, if nothing else for historical purposes. Also, we talked earlier how sad we were of the timing that Go Johnny Go would be released on DVD finally. A terrifically fun film. Who has on its cover and also in the film is Chuck Berry. Chuck Berry, as you listen to this, Chuck Berry died a couple days ago. He is one of the
sad
creators of rock and roll. He died at age
90.
And,
long life.
He was supposed to release his first album in like 30 years this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They'll release it.
Oh, they'll definitely release it.
Oh, man, that'll do well.
So, Chuck Berry was such an influence in the early days of rock and roll. And all these guys like Chuck Berry, they were the ones who inspired the Rolling Stones. Ask your parents. They inspired in fact, the Rolling Stones released a statement. As a band and individually, they all released statements when Chuck Berry died a couple of days ago. Anyway, Go, Johnny, Go is a rock and roll film, stars Alan Freed. If you don't know Alan Freed, he was a disc jockey and a great disc jockey. In fact, if you've ever seen the terrific film American Hot Wax, that is based on the life of Alan Freed. He had kind of a tragic life. So Alan Freed is the talent scout, and he's searching for, the brand new king of rock and roll. So you've got Alan Freed, you got Chuck Berry, Richie Valens is in this. Jackie Wilson is in this, the Cadillacs, the Flamingos, a lot of great bands and artists from the time. Jackie Wilson, did I say Jackie Wilson? So Go, Johnny, Go is not only a great piece of history with Alan Freed, one of the great DJs of all time. Also, it features Richie Valens and also Chuck Berry, and it's a great tribute to the talent of Mr. Berry. So definitely check out, if you can. It's on DVD, Go, Johnny, Go. A lot of great music, and it's a good film.
We got a couple from Milestone here that are. This is kind of a historic moment, a really historic moment. Samuel Beckett made a movie. Believe it or not, Samuel Beckett actually made a movie called Film, and it's appropriately enough. And this is from 1964, and it stars Buster Keaton, and it is effectively a silent film. At least it has no dialogue. And it is a strange, weird, typically Beckettian, very Buster Keaton-y. It's just an odd. It's a really weird, just precious piece of film history, and you have to see it to really understand it and believe it. It is just one of those films that people just go, "Have you ever seen Film?" And most people say no. Now you can. It's on Blu-ray from Milestone. It was completely restored by archivist Ross Lipman, who, by the way, also made his own film, and that is also out. It's called NOTFILM. He was so obsessed by the film, the Beckett-Keaton collaboration, that he continued to do research into it and wound up making a documentary about it and the making of it, and it's equally as interesting as film. So you have Film and Not Film, both on Blu-ray from Milestone, and the most interesting thing that you find out in Not Film, because our good friend Leonard Maltin is interviewed in it, Maltin was on the set when he was 14.
Of film?
Of film. Maltin was on the set. He saw Beckett directing Keaton.
That is bizarre.
Leonard did. I have to ask him about that next time I see him.
Somehow I believe that.
It's crazy, right?
What's funny about Leonard is that, obviously, not that he's like just the nicest guy in the world, but also that you look at Leonard and you think, oh, he's like a TV... he's like a film critic who's known for those TV shows and those crazy books. But you know what? He has a huge life and career in the love
it's
of
unbelievable.
film. I mean, he's not just like some, just some TV guy.
Yeah.
Some guy who just does reviews on TV. He's like an actual, he is as close as we have to like a historian. He's a real deal. He's almost like the Neil deGrasse Tyson. Like, like Neil deGrasse Tyson is almost like he's like the approachable TV face of astronomy and science.
Yes.
Leonard Maltin is like
that. Is that guy for movies. Absolutely.
Okay, now you're looking at me as if you think that that analogy is worthless or spot on.
I think it's spot on.
Okay.
I think it's absolutely spot on. Leonard Maltin is the Neil deGrasse Tyson of movies.
I think you're lying.
Yep. There we are. We have now put a fine point on it.
How many more movies do we have to do?
We're just the new movies. We got new movies. We're doing new movies.
Fine.
Knock them out. A lot of stuff from the holiday season finally creeping out now. So,
Passengers with Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt is a bad movie, and it's a bad movie because
you think this is a bad movie?
You know what? It's if art direction and A-list stars staring at each other for 2 hours was everything, it would be fantastic.
See, I enjoyed this until it kind of goes off the rails.
I did feel like it went off the rails. You know what? The setup is fine.
Yeah.
When
he turns into a caveman and starts walking around the whole ship naked, that's when I just thought, I'm sorry, even if you were the only person in space for years and years and years, take care of yourself, man. Hygiene still matters.
No, you saw the end of Sunshine, the Danny Boyle film Sunshine, which, by the way, I defend.
Yeah,
I like that film.
I know.
The crazy man who was like alone on the spaceship for years and years. He comes back, he's like this all naked and just burned from head to toe. He's a monster now.
Yeah.
Just out of loneliness and pain and whatever. Okay. It's awesome. It's a nice Blu-ray. It looks great. There's deleted scenes on it, and they did a thing on the visual effects. It's very, the visuals are terrific. It's got that, that very cool, modern, white aesthetic that you would imagine in futuristic spaceships. Although, really, when you think about it, futuristic spaceships will look like the ship in Alien. They'll look like the Nostromo.
They will.
It will not look like this film.
That's true.
But it completely lives and dies on its stars. Chris Pratt can hold the screen. He's in much of the movie by himself, and of course Jennifer Lawrence is Jennifer Lawrence. I just think this thing it never really took off. I think in the way that it was hoping. So looks great. 2 A-list stars. It's fine for a Saturday night rental, but don't expect much from passengers. Also, Live by Night is a film that they desperately tried to foist this on us during awards time, as if somehow we were going to think this is like the new Godfather or the new Untouchables or something.
It really didn't work.
It didn't work. Live by Night is Ben Affleck as a director. It's funny how Ben Affleck, and we've talked about how his reputation has been.
He's in rehab again,
but he just left rehab. I know this because I work at E. He just left rehab again. Yeah. But it was inevitable that he was going to have a stinker, and this is the stinker, and it's okay because you know what? I think ultimately this will be forgotten, and people will remember the fact that he directed an Oscar-winning best film.
Yeah.
He directed that terrific Dennis Lehane adaptation.
Yeah.
He's a good director, and it's really all there. I'd rather see him direct than act.
He should not direct. He should not act in his own movies.
No.
Yeah.
Which is one reason why he gave up Batman.
Yeah.
I agree.
I agree.
I would like to say if Jessica Chastain is listening to this podcast, I would just like to reiterate. My desire to marry her because I think she is just completely beautiful and
delicious.
Awesome. She just turned 40.
Did she really?
Don't care. Best ever. Oh, I love her.
I agree. My goodness, she's 40.
Yes.
Really?
I think she's smart and beautiful and I love her.
I had no idea she was 40.
I actually love her enough that I'm willing to sit through Miss Sloane, which is pretty good. It's a pretty good dramatic thriller. I think this is one of those things too where I think everybody was expecting a little bit more like award season love for it. She plays a lobbyist in D.C. and it's almost like a Michael Clayton type thing, right?
Yeah, it's like a female Michael Clayton.
Like a female Michael Clayton.
She's really good. She's really good in it. The movie itself is kind of misses the mark a little.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little too mainstream as a political drama.
Yeah.
I don't think it really makes those tough choices. It's a little bit too, it's like sometimes like with these movies, you really want to kind of dig down and say some important things.
Yeah,
and I feel like this movie is just a little too mainstream. I mean, it's fine as a mainstream thriller, but it's a little bit forced, and there's a plot twist kind of towards the end that I didn't really buy. And I mean, it's fine, but I was hoping for something better.
And we also have speaking of award season, this thing was up for all kinds of awards. Somehow didn't get nominated for any of them, but I think Assassin's Creed should have at least gotten nominations for, Jeremy Irons, right? No, maybe not. Okay, so Michael Fassbender.
How good was Ralph Fiennes? I don't know why I just said Ralph Fiennes. Did you see that movie? I saw it on a plane. Did you see the movie A Bigger Splash?
Yeah, it's good.
It's good.
Yeah.
Where'd that movie come from?
I know it
How
didn't.
could Ralph Fiennes have not been up for an Oscar for that movie?
You know what?
He was
because
just a force of nature.
That did not have a great campaign behind it. They didn't really push that the way they should have.
Come on.
Yeah, I know. It's great.
It was good. I don't know why I just flashed on Ralph Fiennes.
Yep.
You know why? Because you said Jeremy Irons. And the two are like the same to me.
Yeah, they are kind of. Except they're, 20 years apart in age. Okay, so Michael Fassbender stars in this really horrible, ill-begotten adaptation of a video game that never should have been anywhere close to being a movie. The whole premise is ridiculous. They plug him into a machine, and then you go inside his brain, and you find out there's some collective memory about an ancestor who belonged to a group of assassins. It's honestly this movie makes no sense. It has next to no discernible plot. And it's got a bunch of extras. whatever.
If you're Michael Fassbender, why would you do this movie? You're
money,
Oscar-nominated.
boat payments, as you've often said. Here, look, this has absolutely the dumbest. They'll always put a little sticker on the packaging, right? That'll be 5 hours worth of outtakes inside. Some little this has the worst one ever put on the packaging of anything. Achieve 100% synchronization with over 90 minutes of extras. Really?
What does that mean?
It refers in the movie. Like they're assuming that there are so many people that are so hooked into the movie and the game that will really they won't be able to resist that. Somebody cooked that up. Somebody in the market
100% synchronization.
Someone in the marketing department cooked that up.
I guess they thought, oh my God, a bunch of 16-year-olds will think that's just awesome.
Whatever.
You know what? It's just I can't. Don't these people realize that video game adaptations suck? I mean, why is this one going to be good?
I don't know.
I just
here's a couple interesting ones. So a Walmart exclusive as we come into the Easter season, The Gospel of Mark. The first ever word-for-word unedited movie adaptation. Okay, so some years ago, some Canadian filmmakers made The Gospel of John, which came out kind of, sort of, roughly around the same time as is the Passion of the Christ, the Mel Gibson film. And a lot of people said, "Oh, it's the more civilized and humane movie," because it was literally a word-for-word movie adaptation of The Gospel of John, and it was not bloody and gory and horrible and impossible to watch. And so a lot of people really, really kind of slathered their love on it. Now the same people have finally put together the financing to do The Gospel of Mark. Now, if you are in any way schooled in biblical in the biblical Gospels, the Gospel of Mark is the shortest one, and it is the one that at least Matthew and Luke are considered to have been based on. It is very, very threadbare. It's easy to adapt into a movie. It's not a particularly good movie, but it's okay. It's fine. In the canon of Jesus movies, it'll have its place, and it's done well enough that it'll have kind of a little bit of a shelf life. But unless you really, really, really feel like The Gospel of John needs a companion film. If you're just a really kind of a closet theologian, it's not. Otherwise, it's not going to be your thing. Or
it's for parents who realize that if they want to teach their children about the Gospels and all they want to do is stare at a screen because they're 13 years old, you put the movie on. And
there you go.
Be like sure. Stealth learning.
Sure. My pick of the week, I got to be honest, Charles Solomon is really going to hate it that I do this, but I loved Sing. My daughter loved Sing. She loved The Singing Monkey. It's the best thing ever.
You loved it because your daughter loved it.
No, everyone loved this movie. It was really fun. This is out in a 4K version. We got the Blu-ray and the 4K, and the 4K is gorgeous. It is absolutely gorgeous. I would even say it's essential to see this in 4K because it's not a really great piece of animation. It's very, very simple animation. This is from the Illumination people who work with Universal. Illumination, of course, does all the Despicable Me movies and the Minions and all that kind of stuff. So it's sort of in the same vein. You're not watching it because it's great animation. You're watching it because it's really fun and well written. And it is. There's no chase scenes here. This is a very unusual animated film in the sense that it's basically about a singing competition. You've got this porcupine who is down on his luck, and he's a theater impresario, and so he puts on a singing competition as a way of trying to drum up some support for his aging, decrepit theater. And through a weird mistake, he winds up offering more for the prize money than he can possibly afford. And enter all of these different, all these different animals that all have. I mean, it's a world of animals, like in Zootopia.
So it's a documentary.
All these different animals who all need the money, and they all want to sort of liberate themselves from their dull lives, and it's wonderful. It is absolutely wonderful, especially the pig, voiced by Reese Witherspoon. Just a wonderful, wonderful job. He has like a million little piglet kids, and the gorilla who is trying to have a singing career, even though he comes from a family of criminals. It's great. It's absolutely terrific. I loved everything about this, and I just think it's fun for parents, for kids, everybody. Sing is amazing. The best thing that Illumination has ever done. Special edition, 4K, lots of mini movies on here, behind the scenes stuff, character profiles. It's great. There's just nothing wrong with this. You have to own this.
You know what? I passed on it. I feel like I didn't want to see it.
Oh, it's so much fun.
Plus, all those animated films screen like at 10 a.m.
It's perfect for me, man. Seriously, that is golden hour. And then just to sort of wrap things up, we've got Always Shine and The Love Witch, from Oscilloscope to Blu-rays. The Love Witch got a shocking amount of love at awards time. Didn't you think so?
You know what? I saw the trailer
in our group.
I saw the trailer for The Love Witch.
Yeah.
And I thought this thing looks like a piece of garbage.
Okay, so first of all, let me be clear. The Love Witch is a very low budget kind of homage to sexploitation and exploitation films from the 60s, early 70s, right? Late 60s, early 70s. It has that vibe to it, and it is very, very effective in that respect. I mean, it is. It's a fun film. I don't know I would give it any awards, but it's a really fun film. Here's the weird thing about this. It's written and directed by Anna Biller. I don't know why. I have no recollection of Anna Biller, and I graduated high school with her, allegedly. I haven't even gone back and looked in the yearbook.
So how do you know you graduated high school?
Because Mark Sanderson told us this. And we're going to be talking to Mark Sanderson soon, too, because his book is out now.
Yes, his great screenwriting.
Our friend Mark Sanderson, the screenwriter, high school and film school buddy of mine, he has a book out.
Who, by the way, is also in a long-distance relationship. You have to ask him about his long-distance relationship.
We will do that. Definitely do that.
He and I have something in common.
Yes. So, in any case, he said, yeah, Anna Biller. I'm like, I don't know who that is. We're in high school. I don't know. So anyway, I have to go look at the yearbook and see if I can figure out who she is. Anyway, Love Witch is really, really fun. So I do recommend that. And then Always Shine is also worth checking out. This is basically a road trip movie. A couple of people go from L.A. to Big Sur for a getaway. And they wind up sort of, it resurrects their friendship and a range of backstories that have to be sort of dealt with. As far as road trip movies go, as far as character studies go, it's not particularly amazing, but it is well done, and it takes a kind of a weird thrillery twist at a certain point that is interesting and noteworthy. Directed by Sophie Takal. And I think it's indicative of something. How would I compare this? It feels a little bit like if you were to do. This is going to sound weird, but it's a little bit like a cross between Thelma and Louise, Ingmar Bergman's Persona, and Strangers on a Train. How does that sound?
That sounds terrible.
Okay, well, never mind. That's the only thing I could think of.
It sounds as terrible as the trailer was.
Yeah. All right. Lastly, Mark, we got some listener mail. Let's hit the listener mail, and then we'll call it quits. Lauren in Muskota, Wisconsin says the PS4 VR cinema mode display movies that make it appear you are watching a movie on the big screen or even IMAX size screen. They make TV screens seem archaic. It feels as though you're watching a movie at an IMAX theater, with PlayStation 4 having the ability to play 3D Blu-ray discs. On the PS VR headset, what path do you see VR headsets going when it comes to film watching? Mark, what do you think?
VR headsets?
Yeah.
Can we just watch? Can we just go back and watch movies? Let's just sit in a chair, watch a goddamn movie. That's it.
And that's why I don't think they're going to take off, because movies are still a social experience. You want to watch movies with people, and for the most part, I don't think a family is going to sit around the television set with everybody wearing a VR headset. And I don't think you're going to have your friends over and say, "Oh, come on over. I got the new whatever Peter Jackson movie, or the new big tentpole Iron Man, whatever. I got the new movie. Come on over. Let's all wear headsets and watch it." I don't think that's going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So I think it'll be limited. For gaming, yes. I get it.
I had dinner with Phil Klein.
You're sitting alone in your underwear and you're playing with some guy in Austria, fine.
I had dinner with Phil Klein last night.
Yeah.
TV's Phil Klein.
Yes.
And he was asking about 3D TVs. He says, "So are 3D TVs dead?"
Dead.
He's like, "Should I get a 4K TV? Is anybody going to?
Yes.
Is there any reason to get a 4K TV?"
Yes.
But he does not. He does not watch Blu-rays.
Yeah. Well.
In that case, I was like, well, I mean, will anybody be?
But he streams in high def, right?
I think he does.
I'm sure he's got a Netflix or something. So.
He has Netflix.
So does he have a Roku? Because eventually there's going to be 4K streaming.
That's true. Well,
Roku, a lot of stuff on Roku is already 4K.
Well, I said to him, look, if TVs are so cheap nowadays that if you want to future-proof your television.
Yep.
For $50, extra, $100 extra. They're so cheap nowadays. Just get a 4K TV. And then, by the way, I told Phil the story about how I accidentally maced myself.
Aha.
Did I ever tell you the story about how I accidentally maced myself?
Save it for the next show.
Okay, fine.
And then we got one from Phil.
Phil Klein?
No, Phil V. And Phil Votter. And Phil says, love the show. I live in Iowa. Wish I could attend the Film Week presentation. This was before the Oscars. He said, please forward this to Tim regarding the baby boom generation. Hey there, Tim. Take heart. I figured a way to put you firmly into the baby boomers and take your mother out of it. The boundaries seem to be blurred at times, but the first definition for me was birth years 1946 to 1964 for the baby boom generation. I am firmly embedded in the middle. So regardless of the boundary definition, I am a baby boomer. Tim and I had a conversation about baby boom, so I wanted to put that out there. And then Joe Nutshella, longtime listener, says, you mentioned that when the Oscars were held on Mondays, they didn't really have any competition. Well, if you recall, when it was broadcast in April, they were usually up against the NCAA men's basketball finals on that night. I remember times in which the presenters would mention the score of the game when they would get up to the podium. And he's right. It was often like very end of March, occasionally early April, but he was usually, like the last Monday in March was the Oscars. And it's true, very much. There was always NCAA stuff going on, as there is right now.
Don't care. Although UCLA won or lost, or they
won.
Something.
They won. They're headed for, if they win their next one, they're headed for a matchup with Kentucky, which would be pretty awesome, right?
Wow, don't care.
Okay, fine. All right, we are done. We'll see you guys next week.